Welcome to today's Speakeasy, where we're going to meet the director of a film called Surmerswag, The Great Ice. It's an official selection film of the 2025 American Insight Free Speech Film Festival. The film takes us to the dramatic landscape of Greenland, whose ice sheet is at a great risk of disappearing. There we meet two quite different people, both of whom are dedicated to preserving it. Michael is an Inuit hunter who grew up there and is committed to preserving the culture and nature of this beautiful land for his children and generations to come. Mark is a Spanish scientist who, through rigorous and scientific commitment, is also dedicated to preserving the ice sheet. Where Mark brings the scientific data, Michael brings the lived experience, and together they learn from each other in this glorious film. Let's look at the trailer.
Surmerswag means the great ice. It has protected our land for millions of years. Inuit believe that all is one.
A hunter once told me that all is one. And I believe that it is what I have learned up here. The drop becomes the river, the people, the animals. What happens to one happens to everyone.
I am so happy to welcome Patrizia Bruno, the film's director, producer, and writer, a real one-woman band. Welcome, Patrizia, and congratulations on an absolutely gorgeous film.
Thank you so much, Karen. Thank you so much for having me here today.
It's great to see you. So why don't you tell us, how did you come to make this film? It's a fabulous story.
Thank you so much. So actually, I already worked with the guys on another project in Central Asia and in another one in the Pyrenees. And then they called me 2 years ago already. They just won the scientific project. So that means that they could work on this climatic project in Greenland. But this year they opened also a cultural project side. And so they called me and they were like, hey, we thought of you because as we already worked together in past projects, we thought we could maybe do something cool together, some cultural approach and show something different. And they were like, do you have any idea? And when they asked me, I was like, wow, yes, I do, because it was such a dream for me to go to Greenland. Since so long, I dreamed to go to Greenland. And then I was like, okay, I think the most interesting, because our initial idea was to show a little bit with a more human approach, what was being a scientist in this kind of extreme areas like. So at the beginning, I was like, okay, how do I do this? How do I tell this kind of story? And then an idea came to my head. I was like, okay, maybe if we do a parallel in between the story of a guy that lives in the Arctic in everyday life and the head of the scientist, if we find this other character, it can be an interesting story to tell. And so this idea of finding a fisherman and a hunter from Kanak, that is the northernmost town of Greenland, and do a parallel with Mark, that is the head scientist of the group. And then it was not easy because I had no connection. I had actually one connection in the village, but I wrote many emails and nobody answered. I tried to phone, nobody answered. And then actually I realized that why, because when I arrived in the village, I realized there was no connection at all. But I was super lucky because I found this person, this hunter and fisherman really existed. And on top, it was of the same age of the scientist. So it was the perfect parallel to do. And that's how the story started.
Yeah, it's wonderful. And Michael is incredible. And I guess you really got kind of lucky because I don't know how much English is spoken on the island, but he lived in Denmark for a while. So he was an English speaker, as is Mark. And so that was lovely that they were each able to speak themselves. So what was the moment like when Mark and Michael met? I mean, they're coming from two different worlds. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, actually, it was a really magical moment because it's two totally different cultures that come together. And it was, they understood each other so much even if they were coming from totally different background. And actually, they both happened to just had a new son. And so I think that was also something super precious, because they had a little bit this vision of wanting to pass something on to new generation. And so they were really both in two super different ways, because Mark in a more with a more scientific approach, and Michael with a more cultural way, we can say. They are trying to preserve what the treasure of the Arctic, that is something really important for future generation. And they're doing it for sure, both for all of us, but also for their sons. So I think it was a kind of a super personal approach that they both had, and they get along super well together also because of this. And it was super interesting. They taught so much to each other, because everything Michael was seeing, Mark would kind of translate it in data, and vice versa. So it was super interesting to listen to them.
Then you could pass this way.
Okay.
Then the glacier advances, brings the sediments. You see the red color? It's overlapping on the black color. So it's the push of the glacier that collapsed and dammed the valley.
Okay.
And they learned from each other. I mean, they really, because they brought different things, but they both want the same result. It must, I just love that whole notion. And I love the fact that, I mean, you took a bit of a risk going out, because you didn't have your second character. You had your first character, Mark, and you knew him and you knew he was great, but you didn't have that second character. So that was fantastic that you found Michael. Really good. So what was it like living in Greenland? You were there about a month, I guess.
Yes.
Tell us what it was like to live there.
Well, Greenland is a totally different world. I travel a lot in my life, but Greenland was really something special. First of all, well, the village is super isolated, and you need a couple of days to reach it. So it's already a super long journey, and you can stay stuck in Greenland. Actually, you cannot really be organized. You try to be, but you never really know. And so the village it can live on its own, because you have to consider that we went there in summer. It was August, so it's the warmest month, and it's still like -10, -12 degrees Celsius. And in winter, they are totally isolated. There is only ice around the village, so they have to be autosufficient for many, many months. So they still live the traditional way. And I think that was the best part, because, during summer months, they use little boats to go everywhere, to hunt and to fish. Even if now they have a supermarket and the changes have been happening for sure, almost all the men of the village know how to hunt and to fish, and the women know how to work the products the traditional way, to conserve them, so that they can have them then for provisions for winter. And I think, the most inspiring things for me was how they still relate to the traditional way of living, and how much they are connected with nature, because there is no other way. They have to know nature to get along and to survive in this super extreme area of the world.
One of the most, amazing parts to me in the film was when Michael talks about killing the polar bear. And, as a person from the US, I think, oh my gosh, polar bears are so adorable. You see them in the zoo. But talk about that, because it was so authentic. And just tell me, because we've spoken about it before, and I just love the way you explain it.
Yeah, you're right. And actually, I even doubt. I was like, okay, are we going to use this for the movie? Because it can be a contradiction, as you said. It's someone that is trying to protect the environment, trying to protect the nature, and then it kills a polar bear that is one of the most protective animal on the planet.
Then I saw a polar bear. Take it, it's yours, like the nature gave me.
Wow.
It was only me who saw it. He looked at me also. It was like the polar bear chose me. I was excited, I was relieved, because it is a very strong big, dangerous animal, you know, and I killed it. Yeah, it's a part of me, you know.
But once you're there and you realize how they live, how they are connected to each and every single little creature that lives on Earth, and now they really believe that they are part of a chain and everyone is an essential part of it and everyone is providing for the other. And so this polar bear hasn't been killed for nothing. Like, they use every single bone, every single piece of skin of this polar bear has been used for a whole village. That it has nourished dogs, it has nourished even the bones have been used to produce instruments, and the skin has been used to produce the boots and the jacket leather that they use. So I think it's like taking something and always giving back. And the most beautiful part for me is that now Michael goes around with a necklace with a big nail of the polar bear around his neck, always with him. And it was for him super important to always have it. It's like, this animal is now part of me, and I feel his wiseness, his power as part of me. So I think it was such a strong and, even if hard, super beautiful connection.
Yeah, it was really amazing. So tell me about filming. You've never been the solo person on a film before. You've done everything, but sort of in part of a team. What was it like to be it on this film?
It was kind of stressing, and I think I didn't realize it until I was back, and I was like, wow, okay, it's done. For sure, as you said, I always been part of a team. I used to be behind the camera, but on the other, like interviewing, getting the contact with people, not filming all the time. I always work as a second camera, and it was pretty stressing also because of the temperature. For example, when we were in the camp, we didn't have electricity. We only had solar panel. And after a couple of days, we ran out of batteries. So we couldn't, so it was super hard because I had a lot of batteries, but I could use it really little time per day. So I had to select the best moments. It's much easier if you just go on filming and you film everything. But at one point I couldn't. So I really was like, okay, this scene is important. I'm going to film it. And also, I know everything was on me. I didn't have any... I couldn't say, okay, if I don't get this scene, maybe the second camera is getting it. But I think also on the other hand, it was such a big challenge. Sorry, it was such a big challenge, and I learned so much. And I will do it again. I was super happy to be there and be able to do everything on my own. It was a really big learning.
It's beautiful. The footage is absolutely beautiful. You should be very proud. It's really lovely. And you are planning on going back, I gather, right? So talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. The idea is to go back. The guys. So this is a scientific project that it will be going on for 6 years. Is connecting like Greenland, Iceland, and the Ellesmere. There are some islands at the northernmost part of Canada. And the idea is to go back this time during spring season, so around May, and to get the life in the village, but during winter time. This was for us just kind of a little trial. And we were like, okay, let's see what we can do, doing everything on our own with this little project. And it went pretty well. We are happy of the results. And so the idea was to go back with a bigger production and get really the vibe, stay longer. Now we already know the characters. We can organize better for sure. We know the challenges we're going to go through. So do something bigger and trying to also get to a conclusion with the data we already collect on the first expedition.
So is May then winter there?
May, it's interesting because it's spring, so it's not going to be all the time night, because during winter time it's night 24/7. So it's interesting because we are going to have a little bit of night and also a little bit of daytime.
Oh, good. But it will still be incredibly cold.
it will be incredibly cold, like around minus 40 degrees Celsius.
That's amazing. So I want to talk about another project that you are involved in that I'm absolutely fascinated by, and it was you and a friend from Biarritz. It's not yet finished, and it'll be finished by next year, so maybe we'll see it in the festival next year. It's called Guts.
Have you ever had that feeling? Like a crazy, vivid dream that keeps you awake at night. And you know you have to do it. You have to go.
And tell us what Guts is, the documentary.
Okay, so well, as you know better than me, Guts means this inner voice, this kind of instinct that we all have, and that in our modern time, it's a little bit forgotten. And the idea, it all started actually, this was a dream I had since I was a kid. I always wrote, and I always wrote for magazines, and then I worked for TV, but I always had this dream in my head, and it was like to cross Africa on a on the road journey, and to tell the story of all the girls or the women like me, because I was a little girl when I had this dream, and see and to give a feminine perspective on those countries. Then you start working, you a little bit, you forget about your dreams, and then 2 years ago I met this girl that now is one of my best friend, Marie, and we start planning. I shared this idea with her, and she was like, wow, it's great, why don't we do it together? And so we went on this 6-month journey, and the idea was really to give a feminine point of view on Africa, because 90% of the time only guys do this kind of journeys, so it's always a male point of view on this kind of countries. And my idea was like, okay, we are women, we have this crazy connection that we create as women everywhere we go. And I was like, what can we do as women on the road? I was sure that we could meet other incredible women with inspiring story, and the idea was really to tell inspiring story, positive story of women that they are listening to their guts, they are choosing an alternative path, and they are showing that there is another possible way. And actually it happened. So we took the road, and we met so many inspiring women, from political activists to poets, writers, surfers, any kind of women, and all coming from different backgrounds, and all with super inspiring stories. And we realized that really those women are changing their communities and their countries. So at the end, it was such a empowering documentary and an empowering journey.
I love it. So you drove in a Hyundai Galloper, is that the name of the car, from Biarritz?
Yeah, we drove it from Italy, because we took it back at my place in Italy. We came back to France, we prepared it. We slept for 6 months on a roof tent.
How it was dangerous? Talk about that a little bit.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like, for example, well, Morocco, for us, it's like a second home. We always go, we have a lot of friends, and it was quite easy. The unknown part was a little bit Western Sahara and Mauritania. We received a lot of negative feedback from that. We were like, many people were like, don't go, you guys are crazy, 2 women on the roads in the middle of Sahara, it's gonna be super dangerous. We did it because I travel already a lot, and I felt it was possible. I felt we could do it, but I also know that I really listen to my guts. I mean, if I find a situation it's dangerous, I won't stay there. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. I'm not risking my life. So it happened a couple of times where we felt not safe in a spot, and we moved in the middle of the night. Once I remember there was a car, we were sleeping on a lagoon. There was no one around. It was a beautiful spot in Mauritania. We were fishing. We were like having a fish barbecue after a super long day. And then a car with 10 guys on it. It was kind of a pickup cam, going super fast, driving through us. And we were like, wow, okay. We put everything on the car, like super fast. I got on the driving spot. Marie went on the roof. She couldn't even close the tent. She just grabbed it And I start driving like this, and we drove for like 10 minutes until we reached a village. And then we felt safe, and we stopped, we talked with the guys, and they were like, okay, yeah, girls, you can stay here. So we stayed. I feel if you know how to talk with the people, and if you really listen to what's to the surrounding, and you understand where you are, it's doable for sure. Then you also can be, there is also a big part of luck that we cannot control, but we were pretty lucky maybe, and we pay attention. But yeah, it was not the easiest.
You know, it's amazing. Most, certainly American press and a lot of European press will go to Africa when there's a famine, when there's a revolution, and they don't do the stories of real people. That I think was your goal. And one of the people you met who you were most impressed with, I think, is a woman named Zahida.
Yeah, exactly.
Her, if you can.
Yes, Zaida is a woman that grew up in the desert. So as 90% of the people in Mauritania, she comes from a family of nomads. So she's used to this. She grew up in the desert, so she knows everything about her environment. And she got married super in an early age, like a lot of kids in Mauritania still nowadays. But then she felt that this marriage was not the good one for her, and she decided to divorce. That it's something really hard to do when you are a poor woman in that condition in Mauritania, where women are not really considered to have a right or a power to divorce. She still decided to do it. She escaped. She didn't speak French. She didn't have anything left. And she was like, okay, I'm going to open an hotel. And everyone was like, Zaida, you're crazy. You don't speak the language of the tourists that are mainly French. You speak a little bit of Arabic. She was speaking a lot the Berber dialect. You don't have anything. How would you do? But she said that in her mind was really clear, and she always trusted this vision she had. So little by little, she started selling bracelets that she was making. She learned French. She learned how to drive. And nowadays, she's a real rock star of Mauritania because everyone knows her. She opened this famous hotel for sure. She learned to speak French. She's driving in the dunes, and she's one of the best pilots of the Sahara Desert. And also for sure, that's the beauty of the women we met. All the women we met, they haven't done only the things for themselves, but as soon as they reach a certain financial stableness, they also decided to invest for the community. So she opened a chicken farm. She opened a microcredit agency so that other women could borrow money and start working too. And she's really making a revolution in Mauritania. It's something never seen. So for me, it was really super inspiring woman.
Mm-hmm. And probably because you and Marie were women going into these communities, doors were open that if it were a group of male adventure kind of filmmaker type people, it would have been more difficult.
For sure. The problem, as I told you already, the thing is that most of these women, for example, in Mauritania, there are not even women in the streets, walking down the streets. So when you go in as a woman, you have a totally different approach, and they really open up to you because they know they feel safe, they know they can share, and we really create a super special connection with them. And I think that was the power of doing it, just the two of us.
So it's amazing. So you were in Africa, you were in deserts, you were in oceans, and then you were in Greenland before in the Great Ice Sheet. You have this extraordinary career, and it's more than a career for you. I think it's a calling and a mission. One thing that you said that I absolutely love is you said, I never fail, I learn.
Yes.
And talk about that. That's great.
Yeah, I think this is really the biggest learning that I got from this crazy year last year. It was like, from these women especially, I really learned that I think before that I was really afraid of failing. And I think we really have this in our Western culture. okay, you have to do something and you have to be good at it straight away. And especially for women, I feel we have this, when you are 35, you have to be settled, you have to know what you want to do of your life. And what I learned in Africa, it was really like those women, they started all from different social condition, and they all decided to take different paths, and they decided to change what was supposed to be their life so many times. And they never failed. They were just learning. They told me, you never fail, you just try and you learn. And this was for me the most inspiring learning, and I really trying to make it mine now. I'm like, actually, I'm just learning, I'm not failing, I'm trying. And I think it's super empowering when you start seeing life this way.
Yeah, oh, that is so brilliant. Well, listen, thank you so much for Sarah Schwag, and we're looking forward to seeing Guts and all continued success with everything that you do. And you're a master surfer. I haven't mentioned that. So you surfed over the months in Africa, which I love. Thank you so much, Patrizia.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you so much.
Bye.